Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldman. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, September 18th, 2019. It's time for another show. Hey, let's go. All right. There's a lot to cover here today, and luckily, we have a lot of people here to cover it with us. So this is good news. Also good news because I think I forgot to put a Claritin out today with my morning routine, and I can barely breathe. I'm going to be okay. I don't have any severe conditions or anything like that, but it does ease things up a little bit today, and I wasn't sure I had one out, so all my routine is screwed up today, but we're going to be okay. I don't need to breathe. Greg and Joan will be here to do the breathing for me, and the rest of you we can crowd breathe for me, I think, if we set it up right. Software can do just about anything. There's an app for something that'll help me do that. Daily Co's Radio is live now, even if I don't survive the show. Listen up, you people. We were told by Bill, all the way from Portland, Maine. Kagro X, that's me, David Waldman, doesn't have to tell the truth to the media. He is the media. That's right. We'll be discussing, of course, today, at least for some portion of the show, we will not be platforming Corey Lewandowski here. I'll tell you that right now. I am boycotting my interview schedule with Corey Lewandowski. I am not going to do it. I don't care what the producers say. Yes, Corey Lewandowski did appear yesterday, the only witness out of the three that they actually subpoenaed to show up. And as we told you in yesterday's show, he basically showed up to say, F you, I'm not answering your effing questions, but in slightly different format. He did say words during the exchange. I guess the most interesting of the words was when he basically was called out as a big fat liar, and he's not. I mean, he's not overweight as far as I can tell, but okay, we don't fat shame too much here. A little bit. We're still guilty of that, I think. Anyway, he came out and he was caught lying by 100 people because the format of the hearings was a hybrid between what we've come to understand as modern hearing format, 5 minutes for every member of the committee, alternating between Republicans and Democrat, majority and minority. Then they threw on the hybrid part, which is I think it was a half an hour given over to committee counsel to ask questions in depth and to follow up on things like they did with the Watergate hearings way back when. And although I believe they gave them more time. And it seems like the most effective questioning, most people who watched the entirety of the hearings said that the more effective questioning came from committee counsel, to no one's surprise, really. Having members ask questions is chiefly about getting video bites of each member doing something important for their local constituents can see on the local news that night, creating what they call video actualities. And as it happens, it's usually of the various members asking more or less the same question over and over again of these witnesses, and especially when you have a recalcitrant witness who basically refuses to give you any usable information. So every member captures video of themselves asking these questions and then being denied an answer, and they're all furious for the local news back at home. The council, of course, with half an hour, gets to follow up a little bit more and pin him down more. But, they actually did an effective job because Lewandowski was interested in allowing them to do the job of getting him to admit that, I say one thing to the Mueller investigators, sometimes another thing to you, but most importantly, definitely another thing to the news media, and cornering him, showing him, giving one answer to the committee and to Mueller, and another answer entirely, the opposite answer, the wrong answer, to the media in what they had available by way of video clips of him being on news programs lying his ass off, generally speaking. And he copped to it, and he said, yeah, I don't have any, what did he say? I'm not under any obligation to tell the truth with the media. They're as dishonest as anybody, or something, words to that effect. And, of course, that was a big gasping moment, and everybody realized that Corey Lewandowski was saying that he essentially makes it a practice to lie to the media whenever he's being interviewed, and that you should never take anything that he says as truth when he's on the media. So, of course, everybody said, well, I guess that means they won't be having him on the media anymore. He just told everybody that I will lie to the media whenever I get a chance, sometimes just for fun, when I'm interviewed. Sure enough, of course, the first thing people said is they shouldn't have him on TV anymore. The second thing people said was, well, he'll probably be on CNN tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. And guess where Corey Lewandowski was this morning at 8 o'clock? Yes, the answer is on CNN, being interviewed, as it happens, on the New Day program by Allison Camerata. I only know this because New Day and Allison Camerata were foolish enough to attach their names in the transcript to the tweet that New Day sent out, thinking, oh, everyone will be fascinated by what New Day has to say. But instead, all it did is arm me to say that New Day and Allison Camerata are morons and should be, I would guess, largely ignored from here on in, except, I don't know, maybe occasionally they report good stuff, break some good news, but it makes me annoyed, and I don't know. I don't know what they thought they were going to get out of it, but they're getting this instead. Their big scoop this morning, and I don't know what else they did because I don't watch it, and that didn't have anything to do with the fact that Corey Lewandowski is on. I'm busy. Anyway, their big scoop, the one they tweeted out first anyway, from their exclusive interview with the guy who just said yesterday, the things I tell you tomorrow won't be true when I'm on television, is that Corey Lewandowski very frequently in his testimony yesterday leaned on or said, look, if it was in the Mueller report about me, you want to corner me, and the Mueller report said I said this, sure. I cop to it. The Mueller report is largely accurate in the way, or entirely accurate, he said, in the way it reports things. But then he also spent some time, curiously enough, saying the Mueller report in his opening statement is a piece of garbage, and it was written by partisans, and it was all about a coup against a duly elected president of the United States, and they have it all wrong, and it's partisan, and they're Trump haters. But now you say that it's largely accurate. Yeah. How do you reconcile those things? I don't care about you. I'm not giving you answers to help you do your stupid investigation. So that's what they did for a while. And then, of course, they put him on TV. So today's big scoop, Allison Camerata and New Day, old news, was this exchange where Corey Lewandowski says, the Mueller report was very clear. There was no collusion. There was no obstruction. Duh. That's what, the president says it all the time. We all know that's not true. Allison Camerata says, that's not what the Mueller report said, Corey. Corey says, it absolutely says that. And Allison says, did you read the Mueller report? This was the same exchange as yesterday. Corey says, no, I never did. So that's the big scoop. That was the justification for giving him a platform again, despite the fact that he said, I used these platforms to lie yesterday. One of the other things he said, maybe they thought it was a lie yesterday, or that they would get a different answer today because he lies on television. Maybe they thought that would be spectacular. But instead, he came out and he told them the same thing. The Mueller report said this. That's not what it said. Fine. Did you read it? No. And that's supposed to be the big news. But he already admitted that yesterday on television, nationally televised. CNN even carried it, I think. And they brought him back this morning to say the same thing again as though it were news. And it is not. And so in the grand tally of great things that they had done to justify bringing him back and giving him a platform, the total is 0 so far. Maybe New Day has more scooplets to tweet. I checked, but by airtime, the answer was no. Okay. So there we have it. They did that thing, and it's terrible. I don't know what else to tell you about that, but there's other interesting, fun things we can gather up and share in the news. There are many. Greg Dworkin is rounding them up now. Oh, look, and here he comes. That's his cue to tell us all the things, the 24 things that you've lined up for us here. That's great. In Skype for us this morning. Good morning, Greg. Do you tell the truth when you come on this media program?
I do, but not when I go on CNN.
Okay, well,
It's
that's
in the
fine.
contract that you have to lie to people.
Yes.
I'm
the
mad as
contract
hell,
that
and
they
I'm
have
not
with
going to
him.
take it anymore. At
Yeah.
Lewandowski's network. It is so true. Everybody should read that Bible because, I mean, basically, I'm old enough to remember when the news wasn't run by the entertainment department.
Yeah, when was that? Yeah.
That was, when I was
Back
a
in the
kid, and Huntley
days.
Brinkley was on the air
Oh, my.
to the tune of, Beethoven's Ninth. Everybody knew Beethoven's Ninth because it was Huntley Brinkley.
Well, you should know it anyway because it's
Now people know
probably a
Beethoven's
famous
Ninth
symphony.
because it's Beethoven's Ninth. But, when I was a kid, nope, that was
Oh.
the music for, it's the nightly news with Huntley and Brinkley.
Well, that makes some sense. My kids know classic rock because they use them in cartoons now.
Exactly, and that's
So.
as it should be.
Yes.
So we'll talk about stuff. We'll talk about stupid stuff. Stupid
I
stuff
got
is
some.
not just limited to Republicans. Democrats do stupid stuff too. We saw a lot of that on display yesterday.
Yeah.
So yesterday was Stupid Day.
Oh, well.
Now, where do you want to start? We got Democratic primaries. We have Israeli elections. We have dumb things that Republicans do. We have dumb things that Democrats do. What do you want to do? Which story do you want to pick?
Let's start with dumb Republicans.
Dumb Republicans. So Trump is mad at California.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, that's dumb.
He's so mad at California, he's going to try to limit California's ability to control car emissions.
Oh,
Even
yes,
though
right.
the automakers are on board with California. Obviously, that'll be challenged in the courts. Everything Trump does is challenged in the courts. How well that works, we don't know. But the interesting part of this is that his own staff is saying we weren't ready for this. We're trying to figure out a legal justification for how we could do this. And Trump said, no, just go ahead with it because I want you to punish California.
Okay. That's nice. Does
That's
it
pretty
work?
dumb.
Yeah, I saw that announced yesterday in a headline that said he was going to do that. And another example of where they would have been better off going with the purport construction. The president
Yes.
purports to do this. Well, first, even if there's some question about whether actually he can pull this off because he's terrible at doing legal things. But in addition to which, he hadn't done it yet. So why give him the headline that he accomplished it?
Right.
It's just basic grammar.
So other dumb things Republicans do. This was actually an interesting piece by Andy Carney in the New York Times about good old Sean Spicer.
Yes.
For Sean Spicer, the revolving door led to a dance routine in a lime green shirt,
Yes, I do remember that.
right? And, the whole heading here, Mr. Spicer, more than any other staff member in the revolving door that is President Trump's West Wing, has become an avatar for the reputational sacrifice and ritual humiliation that come with trying to remain in Trump's good graces while also seeking mainstream acceptance. That about captures it. That's actually a pretty good way to phrase it.
Yeah.
In the
all right.
White House, Mr. Spicer held a job that has usually been considered a golden ticket to future respectability and financial comfort.
Yes.
But trading in his famously ill-fitting suit to become a trending neon GIF felt like the culmination of a different kind of post-White House journey, one that is quintessentially Trump. Right? Really hard LOL was the reaction of Anthony Scaramucci, and you can quote me.
Yeah. All right.
So
Yeah, that was a pretty weird
it's hard.
episode.
And then, of course, he tweeted, clearly he didn't win. Clearly the
What?
judges aren't going to be with me, Mr. Spicer tweeted on Tuesday after Mike Huckabee, the former Arkansas governor, expressed support online. Let's send him a message to Hollywood that those of us who stand for Christ won't be discounted.
Is that what he was doing?
Yeah, the tweet did not land with the grace of a pirouette.
No. I did see that tweet. And by the way, he did hashtag that. So you just to be
Right. And then he deleted
perfectly
the
clear.
tweet.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah.
So hashtag Christ, just so everyone knows.
Right,
Might be the
so
same
Tim
one, I don't
Alberto,
know.
who is the author of American Carnage, on the front lines of the Republican Civil War and the rise of President Trump, said, imagine time traveling back to 2009 amid ferocious battles over bailout spending, taxation, Obamacare, and the role of government in our lives, and being told the Republican Party of 2019 would look like this, and then showing a picture of Sean Spicer in
I can believe it.
lime green, fluffy, shirt,
Pirate
dancing on
merengue
stage.
Sure. Yeah, it was really something. By the way, it occurred to me yesterday, looking at him in this ridiculous outfit, like, we used to use tar and feathers for this, and it was so much better.
His performance left many former colleagues appalled by the depths to which he would go for whatever combination of money, celebrity, and reputational resurrection they assumed he was after. But Mr. Spicer did look as though he enjoyed himself.
And I suppose that's a thing. I don't know whether it's a good thing or not.
But his journey seems to have served as a cautionary tale for his successors. Sarah Huckabee Sanders stopped giving press conferences, and Stephanie Grisham doesn't even talk to the press at all. So really interesting stuff in terms of the evolution of realizing that maybe it doesn't play so well. Trump can get away with this because he's completely amoral. He has no shame whatsoever and is completely devoted and focused to what's good for himself. That doesn't work for everybody else. There's only room for one of those. And so when you try to play Trump but not be Trump, generally speaking, what happens is people see you're a phony baloney and they reject you. Trump is genuinely a horse's ass. But, you know, when you try to play one and you're a different kind of horse's ass, it's insincere, and people know that, and you just don't do well.
Yeah, it seems to be sort of unique to him. It's I don't know if it's an ability, but he's the only one that holds it, I think.
It's the only one that holds it, and that's only because the evangelical base that supports him and props him up has decided he's our fighter and we're going down with him one way or the other. We'll see if that transfers to people like Corey Lewandowski, who, as you point out, was on television. Now, here's another dumb thing Democrats did. Not Republicans, but Democrats. They left the best and only questioner for last instead of having the council go first. Yeah. And, of course, they wasted time having members ask questions. As you pointed out, it's to get on the news. But still, if you're going to do that, get the good questions first, establish the whole feel for what's going on, let the members hone in on some of the stuff they want to follow up with. Mm-hmm. I mean, what if they had spent 5 hours repeating the same question? Mr. Lewandowski, did you willingly lie, is what you're telling us on TV? I mean, what if they said that over and over and over for 5 hours? Maybe he wouldn't be on CNN this morning.
They sort of did. I mean,
it would have been a lot more effective if they did it after the council started asking this question.
I guess that's probably true. But yeah, as you know, the practical considerations are members getting video actualities at home, and I think they wanted to get them for the 6 o'clock news, so they couldn't go second.
But that's fine. It's by seniority. Look, the council only asked 20 minutes worth of questions.
Yeah. I was pleased to see that they had come up with this hybrid format. That was a step in the right direction.
Right. If they're testing it out to see what works and what doesn't work, fine. Then they could see that having the council go first works.
Yeah, I hope
the council
will do that.
Only ask the questions works, and they could work with that.
Yeah. Also, I mean, well, if members were there to pay attention to what was going on, they could, and there are a few who actually do this, they could hone their questions and become even more pointed once the council had gotten the basics out of the way. So
that's what I'm saying.
Oh, you said that? Yeah. Well,
let him go first.
Really know, the thing is, I was
home in on the stuff that he was hammering Lewandowski about.
Yeah.
And the main thing he was hammering Lewandowski about is taking the Fifth and arguing for immunity and lying on Fox TV.
Yeah.
That was the soundbite of the whole 6-7 hours.
Yeah, I think so. Most people took that one away, and it was a remarkable one. Although,
right. So start with that, and then repeat it 5 or 8 times, because that's how. For 5 or 8 hours, because that's how adults learn.
Yes.
You know, it's repetition.
I mean, it was pretty clear. I did not.
Can I remind you that adults learn by repetition?
I didn't hear you. I didn't quite get that.
All right. Well, you got to repeat.
How do
yourself.
Adults learn?
They say the same thing over and over.
Really? All right.
So really, that's what they should do.
I will
they still don't
make
get
a
this
note
message
of that as soon as I get a chance to learn it. Could you tell me again how adults learn?
Well, you know, what they should have done is say over and over and over again. So is it true, Mr. Lewandowski, that you're a lying, cheating thief?
You could say whatever you want.
Over and over and over. Are you saying you admit to being a lying, cheating thief? Are you denying that you're a lying, cheating thief? You know, just say it.
Too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, they certainly could have done better. It was better than usual because they at least had the 20 minutes at the end. I'm happy that people hung on to find that. So, okay, great.
Remember, this was supposed to be a preliminary impeachment hearing. If everybody's throwing their hat or putting their eggs in one basket about impeachment hearings are going to change everything. Here's an example of maybe
better
not.
do it right. Yeah. Okay. What other things are we done with stupid, or is there more?
No, we're not done
Wow.
with stupid. It gets even
Good.
more stupid. This
Let's
time
have
again,
more.
the Democratic Party. You know what they're doing in Arizona?
No.
Let's start with the 40,000 feet view. This is from Politico. The ground is shifting. Arizona emerges as a 2020 trouble spot for Trump.
Okay.
Democrats appear to have their best shot at capturing the state since Bill Clinton won it more than 2 decades ago.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Demographic shifts, progressive organizing efforts, Donald Trump's potential weakness appear to be providing Democrats with their best shot at capturing the state since Bill Clinton won it. A new
Huzzah.
poll commissioned by State Labor Union and released today shows Trump running neck and neck with Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden in theoretical matchups. Believe it or not, Warren actually does a tick better. I mean, same. It's, statistical dead heat.
Just a tick.
That poll follows several other recent surveys with more bad news for Republicans. A late July survey conducted by Trump's own pollster, that would be Tony Fabrizio, showed the president losing to Biden, and another in August reported a tie. 2 of the polls show Martha McSally in a tie, and a third shows her trailing Democrat Mark Kelly. That's the astronaut, husband of Giffords.
Mm-hmm.
Republicans are very concerned, said Chuck Coughlin, once the top aide to Republican Governors Fife Symington and Jane Hull. The ground is shifting.
Good.
All right.
I think, yes. Good.
Trump is tied dead even with Warren at 42 and essentially tied with Biden 43, Trump 42, Biden.
Mm-hmm.
A lead well within the poll's margin of error. McSally's tied at 42% with Kelly. Right?
Yes.
Contrary to the conventional wisdom that the presidential race is down to only 4 swing states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Florida, this poll makes it clear Arizona's wide open. Arizona's emerging as the new battleground. So, wouldn't you want to build on that? Wouldn't you want to do everything possible to strengthen your Democratic brand in the state of Arizona? Wouldn't you think that?
Yeah. I would.
No. Kirsten Sinema is facing a censure vote from the Arizona Democratic Party brought by progressives who deem her politics too accommodating to President Trump at the expense of Democratic values.
Okay.
Right? Dan O'Neill, the state coordinator for Progressive Democrats of America, told the news outlet the censure is an effort to push Sinema back to the left. Here's the thing. We really support her. We want her to succeed. We want her to be the best senator in the country, O'Neill said. But the way she's voting is really disappointing. We want Democrats to vote like Democrats and not Republicans.
All right. I was going to say, she's kind of been quiet.
She opposed Trump's
this must be
81% of the time.
That is a lot, although there's room for more.
During the time in the House, when she served 3 terms, she supported Trump's agenda 54% of the time. So she's been much better as a senator than she was when she was in the House.
Huh. Okay.
Felicia Rotellini, the Arizona Democratic Party's chairwoman, said the censure will be heard, but it's unsure it will pass.
I see. I was like, Felicia wrote to who? Who got this letter?
Rotellini.
Rotellini. Okay.
That's dumb. Look, I can understand if you want to primary Dan Lipinski.
Yes.
Granted, he votes with Democrats most of the time, not on abortion, not on fiscal matters. He's a pain in the butt. He was running against an actual Nazi, I will remind people. I mean, that was his Republican opponent, an actual Nazi. But, okay, fine. If Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and progressive Democrats want to primary Lipinski, go for it, see what happens. It's been done before, usually wins, but whatever. I don't care. Kirsten Sinema in Arizona, that's just stupid.
Is she up for re-election? No, right? I mean,
I think she just got elected.
Yeah. So, okay. Well,
but why are you starting an internal battle when you've got a battleground coming up in a year?
Now, I've seen this before with the censure moves, but it's in a very different context with California when they do these things. I mean, California is not going to, slip into the red column as a result. I don't know whether this would happen as a result either, and I'm for keeping her honest and pushing her left. That's true, but
that's fine. But a censure to do that,
hopefully
basically
no one will pay
saying that
attention to that.
it's a vote of no confidence.
Yeah, I guess so. Although, again, it is possible that it's something that activists do and are happy and satisfied having done it, and that the rest of the electorate never hears anything about, and they just say, "Oh, a D and an R. All right, I know what to do."
Well,
so we'll see, but it won't happen for years.
I suppose because she says, "I don't really care about the progressives. I'm 100% focused on Arizona voters," could help her. In the
Maybe.
end, in terms of how she runs. Susan Collins used to do that.
Yeah.
It used to work for Susan Collins. But, when you have enough votes to show that you're, full of it, it doesn't work anymore. Yeah. So we'll see. But,
is there a
this is really a time to try to build, unity in the party. This is not really a time to factionalize and say, okay, my way or the highway. It's just a bad message.
Especially since you can't put them on the highway.
Especially because that moderate Kyrsten Sinema and others like her are the face of the party for when Republicans say you're all socialists.
I guess maybe she's been very quiet, and she doesn't strike me as.
And don't tell me moderates like Kyrsten Sinema represent your party. Your own party censored her.
And yeah, I guess that's going to be a problem, certainly. But even just the idea of moderate, I can't figure out. I'm not certain who Kyrsten Sinema actually is. I don't understand. I don't know whether she's moderate
or who she's offended to the point where they're going to wind up, trying this stupid censure. But I don't get it either. It's just like, can anybody here play this game? You have an election coming up, and the last thing in the world you want to do is produce the commercials for them.
Yeah, I mean, although maybe that would be on the other hand, maybe it's a better commercial than what they were planning against her later. I mean, it's like, oh, that's the most defensible attack ad that we can imagine. So we handed it to them, and they're so dumb they took it. Wouldn't it be great if it ended up being a stupid Republican story? It would be nice. I don't know if that's the plan, but I'll figure it out in the next 2 minutes and save it for 2024. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, with a brand new interruption to say thanks to all of you who support the show. Remember when I told you that our average monthly donation was about $7, for which you were getting 2 great hours of news and entertainment 5 days a week, and how that came out to about 70 cents an hour? That's a pretty good deal, except it's wrong. The math actually works out closer to 17 cents an hour. It is hard to beat a deal like that, and even harder to send your kids to college on it. Thankfully, Patreon.com makes it easy to make that work. Patreon, Patreon.com, is the simple, secure way to make recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Just search for me or the show name on the site, and they make it easy to crowdfund the show so that the power of our numbers can keep the show going for just a few bucks a month. Once again, thanks so much for all your support. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Okay, all right. Are we done with dumb yet?
I'm done with ranting. It's just, sometimes you have to think about what you're doing and not just beat your chest and say, here, I want to do this because I'm going to show everybody I'm right.
Okay. I'll remember that.
And that's a good lead-in to talk about the United Kingdom and prorogation and Brexit. What's happening this week there, of course, Parliament doesn't meet because they've been prorogued, that is to say, suspended. But that was challenged. And as you recall, the Scottish court said, hey, that's illegal. You can't do that because you lied about why you were trying to close Parliament down. You said it was to get ready for the next legislative session, but in fact, it was because you were trying to prevent Brexit debate, and therefore you lied to the Queen. And that is a major offense. People have lost their heads for that.
Right.
So Scottish court said it's illegal, but it's not up to us to decide what to do about it. That's up to the United Kingdom Supreme Court. So they got the case yesterday. They'll probably debate it till Thursday, and we may have a decision as early as Friday. So that's just to have that on people's radar.
Okay.
They work fairly quickly. But people are saying that it's one of the biggest cases to come before the United Kingdom Supreme Court in centuries. When you have a country that old, you can say stuff like that.
Right. and you can get
Well,
away
this is
with
the biggest
wigs.
case to come to the U.S. Supreme Court in 500 years. Well, no, actually, we haven't been around that long.
True.
But
But
they
if it was
have.
a big one, it would really, I guess it would qualify.
Mm.
Just the Supreme Court had been prorogued for the first 300 of them.
Right, or maybe it's a case on how you count years,
Why not?
Why not?
We have to split those hairs.
Are we going metric, and maybe we're doing base 2, and so, it's all really complicated, and the Supreme Court's going to have to decide, and according to them, it's going to be decided in 1011 days.
Well, they can do anything that they want, and even prohibit you from using it as precedent later.
Well, there's two kinds of people, those who understand base 2 and those who don't. So the deal here is that in the U.S., we're talking about our own primaries, and NBC Wall Street Journal poll came out yesterday with some interesting data in it, plural of datum. So Biden, 31, Warren, 25, Sanders, 14, Buttigieg, 7, Harris, 5, Yang, 4, Klobuchar, 2, Booker, 2. And in fact, what that represents are some changes. Alex Eitzwald summed this up from July. Biden's up 5 points since July. Warren's up 6. Sanders is up 1. Buttigieg is even. Harris is down 8, confirming that Harris had been slipping in the polls. Yang is 4 plus 2. Klobuchar is 2 plus 1. And Booker's 2 plus 1. But only 9% say their minds are definitely made up.
Are they sure?
They're sure that they haven't made up their minds.
Right.
So Karnacki breaks up some of the demographics there. Among whites, if you have college or more, grad, post-grad, Warren 34, Biden 23, Buttigieg 9, Sanders 8, Harris 6, Klobuchar 4, Booker 3, O'Rourke 3. So college plus, Warren 34, Biden 23. And you know what? Those are the two front runners right now. I think Nate Silver made a point about that. Sanders people got really upset. But right now, it's Warren, Biden. That could change. But right now, it's Warren, Biden, Warren. Non-college, Biden 38, Warren 25. Sanders 15.
Yeah.
Buttigieg 6, Harris 4, Yang 3, Booker 3. So if you went to college, Warren. If you didn't go to college, Biden.
Yes.
So Uncle Joe retains his popularity among non-college graduates.
And
now,
if you're a
under
Yang
35
supporter,
years
I can't
old
tell. Right.
by age. Sanders 33, Warren 25, Yang 11, Biden 10, Harris 7, Buttigieg 5, O'Rourke 2. Biden is not the favorite of the youngs.
No.
But the olds, over 65, Biden 46, Warren 25, Buttigieg 7, Booker 4, et cetera, et cetera. The point there is that Warren is everybody's second choice.
Yeah,
as well
Warren
as a lot
looks
of
like
people's first choice.
The ranked voting winner.
Yes, exactly. By race, black, Biden 49, Warren 13, Harris 10, Sanders 5, Yang 5, Buttigieg 3, Booker 2, O'Rourke 2. I don't know previous comparison numbers, but that's actually a pretty decent showing for Warren, although that's obviously where Biden's strength comes from. Among white voters, Warren 28, Biden 27, they're tied, Sanders 14, Buttigieg 8, everybody after that. And among Hispanic voters, Warren 29, Sanders 25, Biden 23, Buttigieg 6. So Biden retains his lead based on black voters.
Okay.
We knew that, but that's what that shows. And then John Harwood points out Elizabeth Warren has become the most broadly acceptable candidate. 70% of Democratic primary voters say they're enthusiastic or comfortable with her. 21% have reservations.
Okay.
For Biden, it's 64-35. For Bernie, it's 62-37. So if you're looking at the uncomfortable or reservations, the negative, it's 21 negative for Warren, 35 negative for Biden, 37 negative for Bernie.
Okay.
So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So she's well positioned to pick up if Biden falters. And if he doesn't falter, then he wins because he's ahead.
Yes, mostly. Huh. Okay. That would appear to support, the idea that, all right, it's coming down to a Biden-Warren contest. That may be how it shakes out.
Yeah, it may be. Now, Jonathan Bernstein, political scientist and columnist, has said all along, let them fight, let it play out. The party isn't in trouble. You think there's too many people. Winnowing works.
Yeah.
And this is what's happening. And then the lower figures are starting to drop out. Why de Blasio is still running, I don't know. But these are not strong numbers for Tom Steyer. It's working. Just let it play out.
Well, okay. I mean, sure. I don't like it, but it does appear to be working. If this
and it's at least as fair. And I don't know if we talked about this, but the other day one of the political scientists was saying, one of the odd things about 2016 with all the complaints about how the Democrats at the DNC have their finger on the scale, which they didn't, but everybody says they did. If you lose,
the complaint was made.
So the weak DNC was propped up and made a strong DNC. Now they have all these decisions about what's going on with the primary numbers. And so the complaints about what the DNC did in 2016 have led to a stronger DNC, which I'm not sure is exactly what the complaints were supposed to do.
I don't think that would be what they wanted.
So the DNC set this up. They're interfering, for example, with Iowa's virtual caucus. They're the ones that declared that, it's not viable because of hacking. That wasn't a state decision. That was a DNC decision.
Okay.
So whether or not that's really what you want, be careful what you wish for. You may get it. If you think that the professionals over at the DNC shouldn't be involved in picking your candidate, well, you just made it so that they're much more involved in picking your candidate.
I don't know if they would agree that they made it that way, but they certainly can. Well, there were players in a process that landed there for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean that wasn't the intent at all. But be careful what you wish for. You may get it. Here it is.
Or even if you don't wish for it, you might end up getting it, I guess.
Right. But the bottom line, though, is that there's really only a couple of viable candidates. You can look at the field and say it's Biden, Warren, Sanders clearly with the most strength. And then there's a second tier, which might include Buttigieg and Harris. And you can argue about whether Yang belongs there or not. But people like Klobuchar and Booker are, excellent vice presidential candidates, and some of the others are good cabinet material. Yeah.
So they'll continue to spend money to bolster that reputation.
Correct. While Biden, Warren, and Sanders are fighting for the actual nomination, with it really much more a Biden-Warren contest at this point.
Yeah. All right. That appears to be what the numbers say.
Mm-hmm.
I can't argue.
That's what the numbers say. Well, does that include the first two states? Because once Iowa happens, everything changes? No, but that's February. You can't hurry that along. This is only September.
Right. Okay. This is
almost October. So we got 4 more months before Iowa, and then things really shake out. But, this is a good snapshot of where things are right now. All right. Click. Snapshot taken. Okay. Israeli politics. It was an Israeli election yesterday.
Yes.
And a sort of an election. That is to say, they vote. But in Israel, it's a coalition government, and at the same time, they use paper ballots, so the counting is really slow.
Oh. Well, all
right. What do we know as of now? Not that much.
Oh.
With 90% of the vote counted, Benny Gantz's Blue and White Party has 32 seats. Netanyahu's Likud has 31. So as of now, Netanyahu does not have the largest party.
No.
If this election was a bid to recapture the majority, he failed. Does that mean he's not prime minister anymore? Not so fast. So the third group, after the 32 for Blue and White and Likud at 31, is the joint list at 13. Those are the Arab coalition.
They have how many?
Parties.
31?
13.
13. Okay. I was like, wait a minute. What happened? Wow.
So they are
13.
in third place. They had decided to more or less boycott the last election, which was a bad move. But now they have considerably more power. But wait, it's not that simple. And then Israel Beitenu, which looks like Avigdor Lieberman's party, hard right, but hates Netanyahu, has 9.
Wow.
Then come the really right-wing religious parties, Shas at 9, United Torah Judaism 8, Yamina 7. Then come the leftist parties, Labor at 6 and Democratic Union at 5. So when you put it all together, the anti-Netanyahu coalition has more seats than Netanyahu does after this election.
Okay.
So does that mean he's no longer prime minister? Wait, not exactly. Because here's the problem.
What?
We're not going to have the total until tomorrow at the earliest. Then you start haggling.
I see.
That's when you start handling, and then you decide who is going to put together the coalition and can they do it. And we don't even know who gets first crack at it yet because we don't know what the final results are. And here's the problem. The blue and white party, which has the most seats if this holds, doesn't exactly get along with the joint list, which is the Arab group.
Well, I would imagine they would have trouble getting along with a lot of people.
But on the other hand, everybody hates Netanyahu, so maybe they'll work together. Then again, maybe they won't. And then the balance of power would be with Avigdor Lieberman, who has 9 seats, and he's a right-wing guy who hates Netanyahu, but doesn't love the Arabs either. Yeah. So will they work together and form a unity government, or will Blue and White and Benny Gantz be forced to do a unity government with Likud in order to govern? But if they do that, the only way that Blue and White would accept it is if Netanyahu's not the prime minister.
Right.
But if Netanyahu's not the prime minister, Likud won't agree to it.
Likely not, although I guess it all depends on what kind of relationship they can other parties can develop with the Arab coalition.
Right. Now, I'm not so smart as to know what's going to happen. I'm just trying to lay out why it's not so simple, and you can't look at these results and say, okay, now I know what's going to happen. You don't, because you don't really know who hates who more. Shoot. And Israeli politics is really personal in that way.
Yeah. It's at the heart of a lot of politics, but yeah,
I don't like you, but I hate that guy, so I'm going to align with you, at least for now. Yeah, we'll have another election in 6 months, but at least that guy's out.
Yeah, I mean, and
besides, by the time we have a new election, he's going to be behind bars.
Maybe that's just another way of saying that the elections are still personal. And even if you regard it as purely political, and just say, well, the time has come to call an end to the Netanyahu era, and that's extremely important to me because we can't make progress toward anything if he remains prime minister, is in the end indistinguishable from, but I just hate Netanyahu.
That's what happens when you have a country that's so small that everybody knows everybody else. There's an old Israeli joke. I had an American come and visit me, and they said to me, I'd really like to see the whole country. And the host said, well, that's fine. What do you want to do in the afternoon?
It's a small place.
It's a small place.
The Meister Hunchback.
Everybody knows everybody else, and so it's really hard not to have it be personal. Yeah. But in this particular case, it's personal because Netanyahu's entire political career is based on staying out of jail, just like Trump. He is, in some ways, the Israeli Trump, because if he loses the prime ministership, in fact, he's been indicted and he may wind up in jail.
That's true. Okay. I mean, I'm all right with it. It's okay with me. We'll have to see how this. It's very interesting, and it was very exciting, I think, for a lot of people to hear about the possibility of an end to the Netanyahu.
Right. The downside of it is that some people think it's a question of the extrinsic apartheid lost, but the intrinsic apartheid may win. Oh. And so what happens then? So it's not going to solve anything in regard to, the many, many problems with Israeli society in regard to what happens to the West Bank, annexation, peace plans, and so on and so forth. But at least you get this guy Netanyahu, who's terrible, out.
Yeah, there's not going to be any progress.
If that's the way it works out, which we don't even know yet.
Right, okay. That is, impossible to predict, tough to contemplate, but I have more hope.
It's not even easy to summarize.
Let's say. Yeah, that's true. We were unable to do that, even within a reasonable amount of time. But it holds out a lot of promise that you could work with somebody who doesn't belong in jail to become prime minister. That might be nice.
Right. So here's the headline right at this moment from Haaretz, an Israeli English version that I can read. Israel election results. Netanyahu's bloc fails to secure a majority as 91% of votes counted. Benny Gantz's Blue and White Party has 1 seat lead over Netanyahu's Likud. Arab Party comes in third. They had a big upswing in votes there, probably because Netanyahu was running an overt anti-Arab campaign. Netanyahu crony admits intimidation campaign against Arabs blew up in our face.
Dope. Okay.
I mean, they were doing weird stuff. Netanyahu's kid, I think his name is Yair Netanyahu, seems to be just as dumb as Don Jr. And on the day of the election, when you're not supposed to be campaigning, some countries do that, he was posting pictures on Instagram and other places of Arab-looking people.
Okay.
Saying, they're turning out at the polls. Our people has to turn out and outvote them. This is terrible, yada, yada, yada. And, of course, the pictures he were using were from Istanbul.
Oh.
It wasn't Arabs in Israel who he had in his pictures. He was just taking pictures of Istanbul.
Arab-looking people. And they're not even Arabs, but okay.
Right. So,
lots of people.
And then they went to polling places where Arabs tend to vote, and election officials had face recognition cameras that everybody knew as such. They were really doing their best to intimidate people from voting. But as they say, it blew up in their face because the Arab vote turned out to be quite large.
Yes.
So hopefully that's a lesson there that we can take here when our elections happen. I mean, this is the Israeli version of voter suppression and voter ID. And I was just saying, I called him the Israeli Trump. He is.
Yeah. Many more ways than we thought. Okay. That's a hell of a story. And even Abby voted in that election. So, it is time for your neighbor to go to work. So I guess that's what explains it. Okay. There must be some sort of deal that Abby can work out with your neighbor. But, okay. Well, that's fascinating. We'll have to follow. I'd love to see what the outcome is in the Israeli elections. In the meantime, we have a new national security advisor while we were talking.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. Nobody knows.
Sean Hannity?
Yeah. It is Robert C. O'Brien. Trump tweets, I am pleased to announce that I will name Robert C. O'Brien, currently serving as the very successful Special Presidential Envoy for Hostage Affairs at the State Department, as our new National Security Advisor. I have worked long and hard with Robert, he says. I don't know what that's
Trump is taking him hostage.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, well, there's another one whose career is going to be destroyed.
Yes. Josh Marshall points out that this is the guy who Trump sent to Sweden to get that recording artist.
The rapper?
Yeah, does he say ASAP? Rocky? I don't even know the guy. Got him out of jail on the argument that he was a hostage for some reason, even though he was simply arrested as part of the normal Swedish criminal justice system, as Josh says. But I guess that won him the job. You did a great job helping me get that guy out of jail.
Yeah, but Trump was mad about that because Rocky didn't say thank you.
Right, but that's not
at least
Robert
enough
O'Brien's
to please
problem.
Trump.
Yeah, although why not hold it against him? I don't know. Maybe the rest of the field was just terrible. Maybe they had mustaches. I don't know what made him choose one. But he announced yesterday it's down to 5 finalists, and he put out the list, which is not something presidents do, but it's because he's a reality TV head. He thought that, people will like it.
I'm going to just leave you with this Mark Caputo tweet that kind of sums up some of our earlier conversation.
Okay.
Trump is tied with Warren and Biden in Arizona. Same goes for Senator McSally in her race against Mark Kelly. And Dems are a seat away from equally dividing the state house and won 3 statewide seats in 2018. Arizona looks like a battleground. If anybody says Warren isn't electable, but Biden is, the new poll in Arizona suggests otherwise. And so I'll just leave you with that. Okay. So that's my summary for this morning. Yeah. We'll go see what Abby's all about, but I think I know it's that neighbor going to work. I got to tell that neighbor to retire,
Yeah, or talk to his boss.
We can have a show without this.
Can he telecommute in any way?
Yeah.
Is this something
or at least, don't go in until 10 o'clock. I'm busy.
Window? Yeah. Right. You should.
That'll go over well.
We're going to hack the traffic report that goes to that guy's house so that he'll delay his departure. Okay. Or the least he could do is leave at 9:27.
That's what I'm thinking.
That would be helpful.
Anyway,
Okay.
take care,
Very
and
good, thank you.
I will wind up talking to you tomorrow. I'm going to do the pundit roundup for tomorrow. Tim Lang is still unavailable.
Okay.
So we'll have some material to talk about and a show to talk about, and we'll have fun.
Yes, I hope so, and I hope we'll know a little bit more about what's going on in Israel by that point. Not that the show is
Meanwhile,
about Israel.
we'll know what happened in Israel. We'll know a little bit more about what's going on in the United Kingdom. And Democrats, please don't be stupid for 24 hours. Thank you so much.
Help it. Okay. Well, look forward to it. Thanks very much. Corey Lewandowski, I think, becomes president of CNN tonight.
Oh, that'd be good.
That'll be helpful as well. Okay.
Well, at least they'll be out in the open.
Yes, right. They might as well just lay it all cards on the table.
Right.
Thanks, Greg. Okay, let's see what else we have socked away. Pocket, what's happening on the front pages of Daily Kos. We probably should be relying on them for summation of what happened in yesterday's hearing. Although, honestly, I think we all kind of got it. I didn't, as usual, I didn't get to watch the hearings, but I got a pretty good impression of what was going on. And sometimes you take away the top line better just by keeping some distance. But if you're, of course, looking for the minutia, the details, you're sifting through this, looking for the gotcha moment, you got to be watching the whole thing. Okay, let's see. There's late-ish news on what's going on in other standoffs with congressional committees. The over on the intelligence side, the intelligence chief, it says here, refuses to testify, prompting standoff with Congress. This is exactly what we were expecting, but I guess it's all official now. The New York Times reports, it's not official because they report it, but because it happened, and they also happen to be among the many people who covered it. Julian Barnes, Nicholas Fandos reporting late yesterday that the Director of National Intelligence will not testify before Congress this week or immediately hand over a whistleblower complaint to lawmakers, escalating a standoff between Capitol Hill and leaders of the intelligence agencies. The Democratic chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff, demanded in a cryptic letter, his English cryptic, on Friday that Joseph McGuire, the Director of National Intelligence, turn over a whistleblower complaint made to the Inspector General for the intelligence agencies. Schiff asked in his letter whether the underlying conduct involved the president or those around him, but Schiff has said he cannot discuss the content of the complaint and it is difficult to assess because its nature is not publicly known. Other lawmakers said they did not know the complaint's detailed. I guess that's the cryptic part. The committee's position, though, is clear. I guess it's not cryptic. Once again, DNI can neither provide the complaint as required under law, Schiff said. He can either do that, or he will be required to come before the committee to tell the public why he is not following the clear letter of the law, including whether the White House or the Attorney General are directing him to do so. Fine, right? Well, the complaint involves conduct by someone, quote, outside the intelligence community, and does not involve intelligence activity under the supervision of Mr. McGuire, the general counsel for the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Jason Klitanich, maybe Klitanich? I don't know. It's one of those names that ends in C. Klitanich wrote in a letter on Tuesday to Schiff that was obtained by the New York Times. That stance signals a disagreement between the Inspector General and the Director of National Intelligence, even though he's only acting, right, over who would best investigate the complaint. This is interesting. So the original complaint was submitted on August 12th by a member of the intelligence community, according to officials briefed on the matter. Schiff said the law required that the complaint and the Inspector General's determination be shared with Congress within 7 days. He says that the law requires that because that's what it says in the law. But that's stupid. That's not what the law actually requires. No director of national intelligence has ever refused to turn over a whistleblower complaint. So people think that's what the law means. It is what the law says, but is it what the law means? That's the big question. And because no one has ever refused to comply with it, the thinking was, the conventional wisdom was, that that's what the law meant. Mr. Schiff told CBS that McGuire had told him he was not providing the complaint, quote, because he is being instructed not to. That this involved a higher authority, someone above the Director of National Intelligence, which is a cabinet position, even though he's only acting. So, Mr. Kletenich concluded that the complaint did not meet the legal definition of an urgent concern that must be turned over to the Congressional Oversight Committee. Only allegations relating to the funding, administration, or operation of an intelligence agency meet that requirement, the counsel wrote. You know, maybe true. Nobody knows. So I guess if the law requires that it be turned over within 7 days if it's urgent, gives you wiggle room, right? This isn't urgent, even though apparently the Inspector General said it was urgent. We think it isn't. Either the Inspector General for the Intelligence Committee or, well, committee? Either the Inspector General is for the intelligence community. But, okay, either the Inspector General for the Intelligence, maybe community, or the Director of National Intelligence, or the Director, as the case may be, could refer the complaint to another department and relevant oversight committee, an intelligence official said. But the Inspector General for the intelligence agencies has already begun investigating the complaint and alerted the intelligence committees. Mr. McGuire's office has told the committee that the complaint involves potentially privileged matters, language that has raised some eyebrows on Capitol Hill. Mr. Kletenich wrote that Mr. McGuire would not appear Thursday at a hearing, as Mr. Schiff requested, adding that he is not available on such short notice. I think you would make yourself available if things were urgent. But, of course, remember that his position is that it isn't urgent. So maybe this actually, comports with what he's pleading here. Mr. Kletenich wrote that he's not available on such short notice. Still, a senior intelligence official said McGuire wants to find a way to work with the committee and try to accommodate Schiff's requests while still ensuring the whistleblower's identity is protected. Schiff said he expected McGuire to appear Thursday under subpoena if necessary. The Inspector General for the agencies has determined that the complaint is credible and urgent, so that's that, according to him. We'll be right back. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Roots Radio, and welcome to the 10 o'clock hour. We're pretty much done with this latest update, or at least the latest one I grabbed, about the fight between McGuire and Schiff on his appearance and the turning over to Schiff, I guess, or at least the leadership of the Intelligence Committee of this whistleblower report. I guess one last detail that's worth pointing out here, and it is, I guess I think so, and so do the writers of the article, because it's the last detail pointed out here. Mr. McGuire has been confirmed by the Senate to be director of the National Counterterrorism Center, but he was named the, almost forgot my sound effect, the Director of National Intelligence after Dan Coates stepped down in August, and the Trump administration forced his deputy, Sue Gordon, to retire. So this decision would have been in the hands of Sue Gordon if it wasn't for forcing her out. And with her gone, it falls to McGuire to make this decision on whether or not to appear, whether or not to honor the subpoena, whether or not to turn over the report, whether or not to try and game the semantics surrounding the report as defense against not turning it over. Sue Gordon presumably would have handled things the way they were always handled before, under the norms and the previous understanding of how a director of national intelligence or a director would ordinarily handle things. So I guess that's why she was pushed out. Okay, let's see. A couple other important stories now circulating. Where should we start? How about, well, I think we could probably talk with Joan later about what to do with Lewandowski or other witnesses like him who essentially tempt Congress to consider charging them with contempt. And there was an awful lot of calling for that. And I will just say, I guess for the record, proud of having told everybody about the contempt process and the various contempt options that Congress has before it back in 2000, let's say 7 through 9 or so that it has worked its way into at least activist democratic consciousness, if not the wider consciousness of the electorate. But it gets discussed now, not only among activists, but among journalists in ways that it never used to, just like changing the filibuster rules or the interpretation of the rules. It evolved in much the same way. It was the general opinion of journalists and therefore the citizenry for many years that the filibuster rules and the interpretation of the rules simply could not be altered without a 2/3 majority in the Senate, and over a campaign of relatively short campaign over a number of years. I mean, given how long it took to change filibuster rules in the past and get the threshold for invoking cloture down from 2/3 to 3/5, it was a relatively short amount of time. But it took, there was an active campaign to teach people what abilities the Senate really had in this area. And then it became eventually, common enough knowledge and that it became conventional wisdom. Then, of course, they did change not the rules, but the interpretations of the rules and established new precedents with regard to the rules about filibusters. And at that point, everybody learned the lesson. And now they're clearer on what senators can and cannot do with respect to changing those rules or the interpretations of them. Similar activity, but not really at quite the same level. But similar activity took place with respect to contempt of Congress and the weaknesses of statutory contempt and the theoretical, availability of inherent contempt. And now it's something that people call for all the time. And, whether it's wise or not, I'm glad that people know. It's good for people to know how Congress can and can't do its job. And then they can, make demands that perhaps are ignored, but that they can at least make those demands. At least it's good to know what options the Congress is supposed to have. And you can make your voting decisions based on whether or not your members of Congress agree with you that they are appropriate to use. This was a total mystery a few years ago, and we've changed that. So I would pat myself on the back, but my hands are busy with the buttons running the show. And I'm sure we'll discuss that a little bit with Joan later on. Let's see. Other interesting topics or approaches to our topics that are available to us. You know what? Here's an interesting one. Speaking of what can and can't be done, I know I've got in here somewhere here we are, a Vox explainer, because all things from Vox are explainers, and I think this is one of the first ones out of the gate for Ian Millhiser, having moved over to Vox from, I guess, the now defunct Think Progress, or at least mostly defunct. It may be rebooted at some point, and there's a whole issue there that we haven't explored. Anyway, Ian writing over at Vox, tantalizing here, how to remove Brett Kavanaugh without impeaching him. Intriguing and sort of exotic sounding. Let's find out. The bar for removing Justice Brett Kavanaugh by impeachment is so high as to be insurmountable. He may be right about that, but he says there may be another way. Let's find out. In 2006, years before Christine Blasey Ford publicly accused Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh of attempting to rape her when they were both in high school, the Yale Law Journal published a provocative paper. The paper, How to Remove a Federal Judge, is by law professors Sai Krishna Prakash and Stephen D. Smith, lays out a roadmap for, well, how to remove a federal judge without resorting to the impeachment power. It argues that a provision of the Constitution, well, maybe I should save this for just a second. Here's something that occurred to me as I was reading it. So, is it SAI? Yes, SAI, Sai Krishna, Prakash, and Stephen Smith, how to remove a federal judge. It's just interesting. So, 2006. And it lays out this interesting process and argument that's constitutional in its basis. It just occurred to me that the nuclear option, what became known as a nuclear option, but was referred to as the constitutional option by the authors of another prestigious law review or law journal. I think it was, it might have been a journal. They published it, and interestingly enough, as I recall, the last names anyway of the authors there were Gold and Gupta, another Indian American making a contribution to the outer edges of constitutional legal thinking. That just rang a bell for me. I thought that was kind of interest. And in this case, though, Prakash and Smith, not Gold and Gupta, but Prakash and Smith, making an argument that a provision of the Constitution stating that federal judges and justices, quote, shall hold their offices during good behavior, unquote, is widely misunderstood. How so? Contrary to the virtually unquestioned assumption among constitutional law cognoscenti that impeachment is the only means of removing a federal judge, and that was a quote, Prakash and Smith argue that the term good behavior is a legal term of art that would have been understood by the founding generation to allow judges to be removed by judicial process. Prakash, a professor at the University of Virginia, is a former law clerk to Justice Clarence Thomas. Smith, a professor at the University of San Diego, is a frequent contributor to conservative and libertarian publications. So, Ian points out, even if the paper did not precede the Kavanaugh hearings by more than a decade, it would be difficult, nonetheless, to argue that it was published in order to lay the groundwork for a liberal victory over a conservative Supreme Court justice. I don't know if that's going to help, but it's difficult to argue it. The paper, which was published in one of the Legal Academy's most prestigious journals, but has had little impact on public policy so far, could wind up becoming important if Democrats capture Congress and the White House in the 2020 election. I wonder what Prakash and Smith had in mind in 2006, removing a judge without resorting to impeachment. I mean, it was clear what Gold and Gupta, and I think their publication was, by the way, in the Harvard Journal of Law. I think the Harvard Journal of Law and Public Policy might be the actual title of the thing. So they were clearly aiming at clearing the logjam around what Republicans considered to be the unconstitutional filibustering of judicial nominees, not just the Supreme Court, but of any judicial nominees. They regarded this as a breaking of a longstanding norm and possibly unconstitutional. So it was clear what they were aiming at. I'd have to read the article to see. Maybe we should do that sometime to see what were they aiming at 2006. So Republicans were aiming at Democratic filibusters, but the procedure they laid out, although it was a variation of the procedure that they laid out that ended up being used, ended up coming back to bite them. And I'm curious what they thought they were aiming at, and would it be ironic in any way to have it brought to bear with respect to Brett Kavanaugh or any conservative judge. Anyway, the paper, published in one of the Legal Academy's most prestigious journals, has had little impact on public policy so far, very much like the Gold and Gupta article for a while, could wind up becoming important if Dems win out in 2020. On Saturday, the Times published a report bolstering the allegations against Kavanaugh. We all know about that one. The Times says that its reporters, quote, found Dr. Ford's allegations credible during a 10-month investigation and that at least 7 people corroborated a second allegation by Kavanaugh's Yale classmate Deborah Ramirez, who says that Kavanaugh, well, you all know what happened about what got pulled down and what, as a result, was thrust in poor Deborah Ramirez's face without her consent. It is a morning show. Anyway, he's denied both allegations. The report also revealed new allegations that Kavanaugh allegedly attended a drunken dorm party in college where friends, we're back to the penis problem here. He's got this one. This is another one where friends pushed his penis. How does that even happen? Into the hand of a female student. I mean, well, doesn't that mean that okay, for whatever reason, I guess a good night at Yale's dorm parties starts out with your penis in the hands of your male friends, but only as a mechanism for passing it on to the hand of a female student, witting or otherwise. Although this third story is attributed to an alleged eyewitness, and the female student declined to be interviewed, and friends say she does not recall the episode. That's the post-story controversy in which we're still swirling. The Times report, adapted from the forthcoming book, The Education of Brett Kavanaugh, an Investigation, sparked calls for Kavanaugh's impeachment, including from at least 4 presidential candidates. But impeachment, Ian says, is a paper tiger. You know why he says that. To remove Kavanaugh via impeachment, 2/3 of the senators present for such a vote would need to vote against Kavanaugh. I don't really need to, go on with that part of the story. Let's get to the good stuff. Barring a historic political realignment, in other words, there's virtually no chance that there will ever be 67 senators who will vote to remove Kavanaugh. But if Prakash and Smith are right about the Constitution's good behavior clause, there won't necessarily have to be. Why not? What is good behavior? It's a limited slip differential, as everybody knows. No, it is something else. The thrust of Prakash and Smith's argument is that an official who is appointed during, quote, good behavior may keep their office indefinitely, but that an official who misbehaves may be removed through an ordinary court proceeding. This would be no ordinary court proceeding, I'm sure, removing a Supreme Court justice, but the door is open. Misbehavior, they argue, was understood broadly by English courts and by early Americans. It can include conviction for such an offense as would make the convicted person unfit to hold a public office. But it may also include much lesser offenses. The 2 professors cite the eminent 17th century jurist Sir Edward Coke for the proposition that misbehavior may also include abuse of office, non-use of office, and refusal to exercise an office. For this reason, Prakash and Smith claim that it is a mistake to read the Constitution as preventing a judge from being removed from office except by impeachment. Of course, I guess one of the problems might be Koch says misbehavior may also include abuse of office, non-use of office, and refusal to exercise an office. And I'm not sure which one of those you think Kavanaugh is guilty of. He may be guilty of perjury, but was that an abuse of the office? I don't know. You want to get into legal hair splitting? Anyway, we'll save that for later. Prakash and Smith just basically for now say it's a mistake to read the Constitution as requiring impeachment to remove a judge. The Constitution, they note, only permits impeachment of civil officers for treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. But the term good behavior was understood to allow an official to be removed. I've lost my place in the article. Now, hang on just a second. I'll finish up this short paragraph, Joan. This sounds pretty intriguing. The term good behavior was understood to allow an official to be removed for much lesser offenses, apparently back in the day. Therefore, the Constitution's invocation of this term suggests that federal judges may also be removed through a process other than impeachment. I don't know exactly what such a process would look like, but I guess the argument is it would be defined by the judicial branch in some way. And then, of course, that raises the question of whether or not the courts would let one of their own be removed without impeachment, which I guess is still an open question. And one will have to treat I guess, well, one, later on, or two, as events warrant. But I just wanted to at least put out there that there's an academic paper floating around out there by two law professors who claim that our understanding of the process to date has simply been wrong and based on assumptions about practice rather than the dictates of the Constitution or the rules of the Senate, as the case may be. And I have seen that work once. So I suppose that means it could possibly work again later. Anyway, Joan McCarter now joins us. Good morning, Joan. I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about besides removing Kavanaugh from the bench, but if there is, now's your chance.
Well, I'm glad to hear you talk about it because I have that open in a tab and I haven't had a chance to read it yet. So I've been very curious about it.
Yes. Well, I would say you should read it. But I think it would be a mistake for me to have you here and me read it to you. Because then we wouldn't get to hear good stuff that you have to say.
I don't know if I have good stuff to say. Well, I have to say I'm a little skeptical on all of that if it's based on a conduct of good behavior kind of
Yeah.
It's important to remember that the Supreme Court is immune from the judicial code of conduct that all the other federal judges have to abide by.
True. Yeah,
they've accepted themselves.
Maybe there's an article out there somewhere that says we misunderstand that too, but I haven't seen it yet.
So how the two things fit together, I don't know because I haven't done enough research.
Yeah, well, it's going to require some additional reading. And I guess they could fit it in by saying, well, at the time that the bad behavior I'm most worried about, the perjury, let's say, occurred, he's a circuit court judge. So, but then again, they had that investigation.
Yeah, he was a circuit court judge during some of the perjury, but he was also applying to be one during much of the perjury.
Oh, yes, right.
It was in the 2004-2006 hearings.
Yes.
For that position that Leahy and Durbin and crew uncovered so much of his lies to the committee.
Right. And we didn't get his paperwork from his time in the White House. And yes, okay. That's true.
This is where I think that the approach that Kamala Harris is suggesting makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
She thinks that there should be essentially an independent counsel. She recognizes the House Judiciary Committee's commitment to maybe possibly doing impeachment. Nadler says they are. Pelosi says no, they're not. We don't know. We could talk about that because I just wrote on it. But
okay.
Harris says, yes, the judiciary has its hands full. Get an independent counsel. Get professional staff outside to find all of these documents, to put the record together. She's talking mostly about the sexual assault allegations, but the perjury stuff has to come into it. His time in the Bush White House has to come into it because there's reams and reams and reams and reams of paper that hasn't been seen.
Yeah, you would want that to be included in the charge. And she's talking about independent counsel, like having to reauthorize that law, or just shorthand for independent counsels? It's sort of
shorthand contracting it out.
All right.
Which I think is a smart idea.
Right. And it seems the more likely of any of the proposals so far. It wouldn't require much more than, I don't know exactly what it would require at this stage of the game and what abilities who belong to who, but it certainly wouldn't require approaching supermajorities anywhere. So that's helpful enough.
It would also be very smart to have somebody looking into how exactly he paid off all of his debt and his mortgage and his gambling debts.
Yes.
We still don't know where all of this largesse that got Brett Kavanaugh out of debt came from.
Yes. That's true. And I have, by the way, I saw some good, interesting spin on that about how he complained so bitterly about his family having been destroyed by this whole process. And somebody pointing out, a lot of people would consider it not having been destroyed to have all of your debt taken care of, mysteriously or not. Your
and
family's
you're given
done pretty
a
well.
lifetime job.
Yes, right. And quite frankly, even if
The
you had
most
missed out on
exalted
that,
lifetime job in the country.
yeah.
So,
I don't know
yeah.
whether the benefactors would have asked for their money back if he didn't make it onto the court, but, it sounds like he made out pretty well, quite honestly. So, okay. But that's a big, outstanding mystery. Everybody was quick to bring that up. Good on all of you for having paid attention so closely and to have those facts at your fingertips, not to forget that stuff. So, yeah, I love the idea. And that'll be another one of those great ideas that can be borrowed by someone else if they win the nomination instead.
Yes.
That's what I guess the debates and the primaries are all about. All the good ideas have to get shared.
Well, that's the hope.
Yeah.
I
hope so.
I think that there's one candidate who happens to be the front runner with the old-timey
Yes.
Democrats who isn't necessarily going to pick up on all of these great new ideas. Joe Biden.
Yeah, could be that he opts out of that one. Although, he's got a lot to make up for on the judicial nominations front. So maybe he'll feel some pressure.
Yes, he does.
Could
Yes,
be.
he does. Maybe that's one area where we can sort of wedge in and get him to join the 21st century.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see whether that becomes necessary. But further development
for
of the
now,
idea.
he's out there quoting David Brooks approvingly.
Oh.
And admitting that his staff doesn't want him to do that, but he really likes David Brooks. He thinks he's a smart guy.
Okay, well, that's because of the glasses. It's all for effect. Joe, we could get you a pair if you want. Just wear those horn-rimmed glasses around and you can feel like you're smart too. You won't have to rely on him.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be doing that.
Oh. Well, all right. Yeah. I don't know. He's got his own thing. I'm sure somewhere inside his organization there's somebody who's doing the let Joe be Joe thing. It worked for the other guy.
I think letting Joe be Joe is not a question. Joe's going to be Joe.
Right.
He can't be managed. He can't be controlled.
Well, I suspect that's the same as what happened with Trump, right?
Yes.
Let Trump be Trump. I have no choice. I have to let Trump be Trump. I tried to not let him. It doesn't work. He can't read it.
And I don't want to be ageist, but one has learned with increasingly elderly relatives around one.
Yes, perhaps.
That there really isn't a lot of control there. There's
That's
not
true.
much you can do. They're going to do what they want to do. They're going to say what they want to say.
Seems like a
By
common
the time they
thing,
hit the end of the 70s,
right.
it's kind of baked in.
That's a lot of people's experience with their older relatives. Some people experience it sooner than others, but that there's a point and time with age, and maybe it's, I don't know, could be different with everybody, but yeah, your older relatives, stop caring so much about what you think about them being the way they want to be. And they usually chalk it up to age themselves. I'm too old to have to listen to all of you. All right.
Which, for people who aren't running to be president, that's great.
Yeah, right. I mean,
because the
does
impact
change
is
the
in the
calculus.
family, and it's, they've earned it. When it comes to having to run the country, maybe being able to take advice from smart people is a good thing.
yes, I think that the founders thought so. But, they're old now too, so who knows? Maybe they would change their mind. Yes, that's how old they are. Extremely old. So, all right. Well, let's see. We'll wait and I guess see what happens.
Well, I know
and
now
then-
we're at break time, and so we can't really get into a lot of things like how Nancy Pelosi and Jerry Nadler are making life difficult for everybody.
Yes, But on the other side of the break, we can get back to that, clearly.
We can get back to that on the other side of the break.
Think about that and whatever else we might want to bring up for discussion. I don't know, any quick hits that are worth pointing out just before our music begins? Or I don't know. I guess it's all kind of involved.
Susan Collins voted for Brett Kavanaugh.
Oh, yes. Say that again? Like 5 times?
Susan Collins voted for Brett Kavanaugh. Susan Collins green-lighted Brett Kavanaugh before he was even nominated.
That's true, too. Yeah. Well, everyone should be keeping that in mind. And, of course, have your chance to take your revenge when the polls open, in a year from now. So stay mad, everybody.
We've got a lot of time to prepare.
That's true. And I can isolate that soundbite and just play it over and over again as a service to the community. All right, we'll be right back in 2 minutes. Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Or read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com.
I can message that. Where's the message then?
All right, well, we are back now. Welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio, trying to work out the details of what to do next and to share the links for all those details. But the one thing that we didn't want to get too far into because the break was coming, stupid break, getting in the way of, and for no real reason either. But give us a chance to organize anyway. You mentioned that. The news this morning, Pelosi's quote that you can leak this, which is not an ordinary thing to say in Washington, D.C., I don't think, but I guess it got quoted this time. What's the story behind this exactly?
The story behind this is it's so frustrating.
Yeah.
We've seen weeks of mixed messages coming from Nadler and from Pelosi. Yeah. Nadler saying, yes, this is an impeachment inquiry. Yes, we're moving forward. He called the Lewandowski hearing yesterday part of an impeachment inquiry. And Pelosi saying, no, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. This is Pelosi doing this on purpose. This is Pelosi. I don't understand why. Yeah. We can speculate on that. Wanting somehow the disagreement among Democrats to be the story. Politico reports, and I think that Politico probably has it right this time, judging by the fact that we've seen this back and forth and this confusion out of the House.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That in last week's conference meeting, she, quote, stunned lawmakers and aides with a swipe at Democratic staff of the House Judiciary Committee. Saying that the committee aides were getting out ahead of themselves, getting out ahead of the conference and talking about impeachment. And she added, according to multiple people who were in that room, you can feel free to leak this.
Yeah, weird.
And then you have the message from Jayapal of the Congressional Progressive Caucus saying she just wants to be careful of all the different members of the caucus. She doesn't always want to use the word impeachment, but believe me, she signed off on every piece of what has been put forward.
Okay, so if that's true, you would wonder why do this.
Why is she trying to... It makes no sense to me, but supposedly Pelosi has signed off on everything. She just doesn't want him to call it impeachment. I don't know. And then another member of the Judiciary Committee says that she's looking at the politics of it. Nadler is looking at high crimes and misdemeanors, and we are inundated with them in the Judiciary Committee, but Pelosi is looking at the political side of it. And on the political side of it, I think she's wrong, too.
Yeah, well, that's one of the problems. Yeah, it's one thing to say, well, okay, I understand that she believes that the politics of it are such that it's a poor idea strategically. I disagree, but I understand that. But even given that assumption, I'm not sure. Like you said, why add the storyline of that there's this secret comment that should be leaked in some way, as opposed to just coming out and saying things? And I guess maybe
why is she pushing the narrative that Democrats are inept and in disarray?
Yes, that you would think would be
How is
one of
that
her main jobs, not to.
Message?
That part I don't understand, right? I could say it's a strategy that I disagree with when it comes to backing impeachment, but I can't even say, well, maybe she thinks it's smart to look divided. That can't really be it, right? So,
no. She thinks she's protecting new members, but, new members are frequently saying, okay, Katie Hill yesterday, I'm behind impeachment. It's time.
Right.
And it's a circular argument. She says the people aren't there yet. We, is polling badly.
Yeah.
Don't let the people lead on this. Make the case for them. This is what happened in Watergate. It worked. They had the hearings, and you and Greg talked a little bit about how the hearings went, but you had the hearings, you made the case to the American people, you laid out everything that this president has done that is illegal, that's a high crime and a misdemeanor, and you make the case. Stop thinking that somehow you're going to be bailed out by the people. You were elected to be the leader.
Oh, yes, that's true. Although I enjoy it when people get the chance to lead from time to time.
Well, yes, and sometimes we need to. But, look at the resistance in 2017. Out of that grew the blue tsunami. It's nice to say, it was about healthcare, and I think in part it was, but that was just a slice of the larger part of it being a committed anti-Trump vote.
Yes.
Look at all of the women who ran and won. It was because of Trump.
Yeah. Yes.
And looking for this mythical swing voter that you have to grab is kind of ridiculous when you also look at the popular vote that elected Hillary Clinton.
True. I'm not
selected Hillary Clinton, I should say, elected being a actual term of the electors and who got put in office. Yeah.
Well, that's true. We have to be careful with the terminology. Yeah, I'm not certain of what I've never been in agreement with the thinking about strategy, but to top it off, I suppose to say, well, what will really seal the deal is if they also think we're in disarray about this stuff. So can't really come up with a reason why she wanted to do it that way, as opposed to just coming out and saying, or adopting the approach of, well, I personally don't feel like I'm ready. I wouldn't be, if I were a member casting a vote on the floor, ready to impeach, but that's different, and I can't prevent the committee.
But what is wrong with saying it's clear to the American people from the Mueller report, from the tweets, from his everyday actions, from Doomberry in Ireland to Trump Hotel, that this president has ethical issues, and we need to explore those.
I don't know. I mean,
she doesn't have to commit to impeachment. She can just say it's appropriate for the committee to be doing its job and investigating.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess
how hard would that be?
Trying to have it both ways, because why not try to have it both ways? If you can, if you get away with it, great. But Yeah.
The problem is there's a huge Democratic base out there saying, what the hell? We elected you for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an entire nation looking at a completely chaotic White House, looking at a Senate that is in Mitch McConnell's iron grasp that won't do anything to help the nation move forward. There's got to be some governmental body that represents us that is functioning and is doing his job and is being the adult in the room. And she's got to be it, because she's the only one it can be.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I suppose, I don't know what the alternative is, but I mean, political theorists, of course, tell you, well, what happens when the electorate at large comes to the realization that there are simply no institutions that can reflect their will, period, and investing any of them with your trust is worthless. Well, they usually don't have good outcomes from that. And I guess you can keep a lid on things through totalitarianism or lose a revolution. I suppose those are the two options that theorists would throw at you. Whether either of them are realities and workable in the modern context, I don't know. I have my doubts, but yeah, I mean, it's enormously frustrating. And I guess on a small scale, it won't be a revolution or totalitarianism question necessarily, but it might very well be. It's a lot easier to imagine it being a turnout problem. I don't care anymore. It doesn't matter to me. I never get what I want anyway, no matter who I vote for.
That's the political side of it. There's also the practical side of it, that not doing anything whatsoever to hold this administration accountable is letting it continuing to allow Trump to do ridiculous, horrible, damaging things.
Yeah.
When he sees that there isn't any appetite by Pelosi to impeach him, he's given free rein to do more. And, chances are he would do it anyway, because this is who he is. But there's got to be some check. We've got to at least try some way of constraining him.
Yeah, well, I had hopes. However, I have been through this with Nancy Pelosi before.
Yeah.
That's true. And I mean, I remember very clearly being told, that the whole point of electing a Democratic majority in the House was oversight and accountability. And I remember having my doubts about whether or not we were going to get that from them, given the realities of what we had before us. Then George W. Bush administration that would have legally no interest in answering our questions, and perhaps legally no reason to do so, unless we were willing to do something about it with direct action from the Democratic House. And we learned that there was no willingness to do that last time, and so therefore no accountability in the end for any of them. And the only natural conclusion from that was that the next Republican administration would likely do the same thing again, and
pick up right where the Bush administration left off.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, even if you credit ideas like, well, he'll self-impeach or we'll win at the ballot box and fix it there. Well, we won at the ballot box last time. What was the result? The result was from 2008 to 2017, January, there was a cessation in Republican activity in this regard because there wasn't a Republican president. The minute there was a Republican president, exactly what we told you would happen would happen.
Well, a cessation except on the part of Mitch McConnell.
Yes, that's true.
Once he got control of the Senate.
Yes, he was certainly
broke
able to
every norm.
But executive action was put on hold because there wasn't a Republican executive. So, fine. The minute there was one, which was what we expected. It would just pick up right where they left off. As it happens, they had a little show to put on during intermission too, and rob us of Supreme Court seats. That's not a separate issue, but it feels like one. But and so I don't know what the expected result is, but I guess the only thing you can say, given that background, is that the Nancy Pelosi position is that we ought to be working towards freezing the Republican expansion of executive power, the abuse of executive power, in place, put it in cryogenic suspension for 8 years, and then let the next Republican go crazy from where Trump left off. If that's not an attractive option to you, then maybe you need a different approach to things.
Perhaps.
I will call
Perhaps.
her. Hello. Nancy, are you there? No. All right, well, she's not listening to me. But okay.
No, she hasn't been listening to us for a really long time.
But it's okay. It's the way it goes. All right, you can pressure other people. It's surprising, though, as you point out, that others inside the caucus are able to claim, and I think correctly, that none of what the Judiciary Committee has done, even just in the last day, but none of the things leading up to it, would have happened without her sign-off in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, there's an extent to which they can buck her insistence on things, but it seems pretty clear that she had to have at least thrown up her hands and said, yeah, go ahead, do what you want. And then to now say, I want you to leak that I didn't, seems weird.
And is it, should we just not be using the I word? Is that where she has a problem?
I don't know, but put it in
Call
the
it
memo.
anything but impeachment? I don't know. I don't know. What I do know is that if she thinks that this is smart politics, and if she thinks that this is somehow sending a message to people who might be worried that they're going to go off and be crazy, they're not. What it's really doing is just letting the media say that Democrats are inept.
Well, yes. Although lots of people argue, including ourselves, we've argued in the past, well, the media is going to say that anyway, regardless of what you do. So something. But yeah, and I don't know. There's still this part of me that says, well, she's not a dummy. She knows what she's not doing. A dummy. What is she up to? And I just wish she'd put it in a memo or something. And I could say, all right, I may still disagree, but okay, I see what you're saying. Maybe there's a way I could accommodate you and still do this.
And we want to do that, but we also have to look at the history with the Bush administration.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we're just not going to be in agreement as a result of our experience with the last time around. But I would, if I'm going to continue, or I'm going to be asked to continue to credit her political savvy, maybe she's thinking beyond you. Okay, that's possible. Maybe she's outthinking me in this. That's entirely possible. She's a very experienced and very smart politician. So what is it? I can read. I understand things. I know when I have to do things that are politically expedient, but don't feel right at the moment or are unpopular. Tell me.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to trust me, then I can't trust you.
Right.
I guess.
And the other part is that when everybody's tried to say it's 11-dimensional chess, it's not.
That's true too, but it's rarely turned out to be the 11-dimensional chess that we were told. We were told, trust this one, trust that one. It's they know what they're doing. All right. And then it didn't come out all that well. So I don't know. It's been better some days than others. Some of those days are long past, but there's no more. Let's bring in the bloggers and social media community of activists and explain what's going on.
No, they gave up on doing that a long time ago.
So, yeah, we've had a noticeable absence of that. And it's not that I was always invited to them or anything, and now I'm not. I was always mostly reading about it elsewhere. I'm not seeing it now. I don't see
Well, I
anybody
have
saying
been in a
anything.
few of those meetings.
Okay.
This under Harry Reid, we did it
Yeah.
pretty regularly with bloggers. He'd create a day where we'd all come and talk and strategize, and they would tell us what they were doing and pretend to listen to us.
Yeah, I mean, it was a charade to some extent. Okay. But you got a sense of what they were thinking.
Man, yeah, that's long gone. Chuck
That is
Schumer
gone, isn't it?
doesn't
Okay.
want to know what we're thinking.
No. That was never the case. True. But yeah, I mean, even, I don't know. Has Pelosi done any of those lately? I mean, arguably she's very busy.
Pelosi, and we also had a dedicated outreach person in Pelosi's office to the blogs. We don't anymore.
True also. And those people have moved on to other jobs where they're pretty dedicated to the idea that Trump needs to be impeached, actually.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting, too.
Yeah, she no longer even has an outreach person.
Huh.
So.
Yeah, I hadn't really given that much thought lately. And it's because I didn't expect to get invited to those things anymore, but I figured I would hear about somebody else who did. But I haven't.
No.
Okay, well, that is interesting. Hasn't been discussed much, so that's worth putting out there. I think that's a good result from this discussion. I mean, nothing changes, but it's a good
we can't
result.
put it all on Pelosi.
No.
Mark Sumner has a story coming up
Okay.
that's going to be on the front page soon that Nadler hasn't done a bang-up job necessarily on this either.
True, yes.
I mean, yesterday's hearing, here's Lewandowski having 6 hours of just being able to be a arrogant jerk
Yeah.
with grandstanding members and Doug Collins doing Doug Collins thing, and
He was kinda
then
crazy.
in the last half hour we have their House counsel, something Burke. What was his first name?
Oh,
Barry
yes.
Burke.
Yeah.
Who just decimated Lewandowski.
That's what everyone was saying, yeah.
Set his pants on fire.
Hmm.
And got more information, got more obstruction, got more perjury out of him in half an hour than they had in the previous 6.
Yeah.
So why don't you lead with the House counsel?
Yeah, maybe next time, or maybe not. I don't know.
next
Well,
time.
I'd
Maybe
be
next
curious
time.
to see what Nadler has to say about it. Lots of calls from people watching, why aren't they doing something right now? What about inherent contempt? I was very pleased and proud to see how many people knew what inherent contempt was. So that's good. It wasn't likely to happen necessarily, but it was nice to see people knew that it was an option. There were members who knew it was an option. That's not always true. I don't know that they're going to move in that direction, and I do think that there's possibly a plan to try to leverage using the courts, despite the previous failures of statutory contempt, in some way. But that too, I wouldn't mind a memo on.
That would be a good thing to have a memo on as well.
Yeah, but okay. So Nadler,
I would like to
little
see
better.
a little bit more coordination in the Judiciary Committee going forward.
yes, that would be helpful too. A lot of people made similar observations that it looked like the Democrats weren't entirely prepared for what they got from Lewandowski, and I can't believe that anybody wouldn't be, given that the last time he was subpoenaed, he actually came and was cursed and told them he wasn't going to answer their effing questions.
Yeah.
What do you think's going to happen this time?
So, guys, get together or have your staff get together, work out the list of questions you want to go to, work out the possible answers and how you would follow up to them and how you build on each other's work
Yeah.
to get the story out.
Yep. Well, so coordination would be helpful. Some decisions. I mean, maybe they had made decisions ahead of time about what sort of contempt proceedings do we contemplate, and which ones are nice fantasies but nothing more than that, or at least in terms of what we're willing to do, and be clear about it. But yeah, there were certainly a lot of people who wondered including Brad Miller, I saw tweeting yesterday, if this guy giving these answers was a witness in court, he would be cooling his heels in jail for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And, I never really held out much hope that they would just simply grab him and throw him in jail right then and there.
Although it would have been really fun to watch.
Yes. But no, they're not up for that at this point. But I don't know. I don't know whether they're aiming to get there or whatever. The alternative thinking is that, well, with Don McGahn previously having refused to answer questions, the thinking is that they're suing in court to try to get federal courts to, I guess, indirectly enforce congressional subpoenas as opposed to using statutory contempt or inherent contempt. They were looking to get a court to say it's simply, essentially it's unwarranted and illegal for people to refuse to answer questions based on these fake assertions of fake privileges, real assertions, fake privileges. And, the federal courts, if you ask them to speak on this, will tell you, yeah, that's not a thing in the law. So go back and answer those questions. And then if they refuse to answer those questions, at that point, maybe the committee would feel justified in doing something serious about it. But that still means waiting several months at a minimum to.
It's just here we go with the waiting game again.
Yeah. And I do feel like we did this already.
We've done it already. It's getting a little old, and it's putting all of the pressure on the voters, which can we also say is not necessarily a smart thing to do?
Yeah. I like voters. They're nice people. I am one.
And to be fair, voters did give Hillary Clinton 3 million more votes, but voters also gave the Electoral College the ability to put in Trump.
Yeah. So that's problematic. I guess now that I'm thinking about what we were saying about, the warning is that another Republican president will just pick up where the last one left off. Why can't we do that? I mean, in this sense, it occurs to me that we did go through this problem with recalcitrant witnesses from the Bush administration, flirting with the idea of inherent contempt, but we opted to go with the court route, and the court route took us 2 years, and then by the time we got an answer, it was moot because Obama was president. But we hashed all this out in court. I had thought with the idea that, well, then when the next Republican president does this to us again, we'll be able to pick up where we left off. The courts said you have to answer these questions, but instead we're actually relitigating the same things with different names on the paper, and I don't feel like we made any progress during the last time around. And so if you were, say, interested in holding the previous leadership accountable for that, well, that would be the current leadership.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I may be feeling justified in turning up the pressure on them a little bit after all.
I would think so. Let's turn up the pressure on them a little bit.
If only we had a blog.
And let's encourage our leadership to be a little bit more creative. As creative, say, as the Republicans. And as ruthless as the Republicans.
Yeah. Well,
because there's no other way we're going to save the Supreme Court.
Right. Also a big topic.
Or all of the courts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's got to be a priority for our campaign, and the Republicans have successfully made it a priority for theirs, and look what's happened. The fact that we haven't, there's a certain segment, our political activists know it, but
yeah.
Our general population.
We've got Sheldon Whitehouse in the Senate who sent his letter to the Supreme Court saying, "Hey, guys, the gig's up. We know you're acting politically. We know you're being extremely partisan. You got to knock that off." So it's recognized. It's just we need to have a strategy.
Yeah. Well, we definitely do have to make that a thing going forward, and I guess we can spend the time that we've got either under Sheldon White House or others leading inquiries into what are our options should a Democratic president ascend and we regain the Senate. I don't know. Is there opposition as there is in the House, in the Senate, to discussing those options? Will the leadership quash ideas about discussing expansion or rotation ideas, for instance?
Well, leadership is Chuck Schumer.
Yeah.
So.
Maybe
what
so.
Do you think?
Okay. Well, I guess that probably answers that question. All right. Well, there's a lot to be, let's say, motivated about. How about that? That's a positive spin.
Be motivated.
Sure. Well, we can do that. We'll check this out, and we'll be discussing this and much more, I'm sure, in the coming days, and probably again next week, Joan. Thanks again.
Well, thanks, Kagro.
I hope so. All right. Well, at any rate, appreciate your coming by and helping us hash this stuff out. Time now to hand the microphone over to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy coming up next. Right here. Don't leave your computer or your fake radio dial.
From Daily Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Let's take a look at what he's got on the menu for you here. Overseas military will be unable to cast a ballot because of Trump's objection to a 145-year-old treaty governing the international mail exchange for nearly 200 countries. We've hinted at that. That's back in the news. Get the update next from Justice Putnam.